There are more than 50 active armed conflicts in the world today. So it seems that the international community has many different competing priorities. But what the world is forgetting right now is that the humanitarian crisis that we're facing in Somalia right now and the drought that is happening is the worst that we've seen in the last 40 years. More than 1 million people are internally displaced. If action is not taken right away, the consequences could be catastrophic. This is not a drill. Right now is the time to engage in Somalia, and it must be on the international priority. To put it blatantly, there needs to be resources to actually match the rhetoric. There needs to be funding for humanitarian action, for protection, for shelter, for food. More and more children are going into malnutrition camps as well. We are also seeing a rise in armed conflict. These two twin crises that we're seeing in Somalia, both security and environmental degradation and climate change, make Somalia at the nexus of a terrible situation that very much is impacting many other parts of the world as well too. So intervention in Somalia is not just preventing further crises, but also an opportunity to prevent new and emerging crises across other contexts. Well, SIPRI already did the brunt of the work, and now we just need the world to act on it. Through the Environment of Peace report, SIPRI was able to lay out 6 very clear, actionable recommendations on what can be done. It's not a question of what should we do or who needs to be engaged. It's more about actually acting now. So this is a call to action for both the international community, to donors, to national governments, to civil society, to individual people around the world. Everyone has a role to play and no role is too small. For many years, we've been hearing about climate change. For many parts of the world, particularly in the global north, perhaps it looks different than it does from the global south. And where in some places we're looking at preventative measures for future generations, in other places in the world, in my country of Somalia specifically, we're looking at life-saving measures and we're seeing the real day-to-day impacts of climate change today. And it's because of that that we also need to have a global elevation and consciousness around what climate change looks like in other places. What we see manifesting in my country is environmental degradation, massive weather shocks. We see population movement. We see failed rainy seasons. We see droughts. And we see deadly flooding as well too, and no early warning mechanisms. And this is happening cyclically. Almost every 5 years, like clockwork, there is a humanitarian crisis, there's a drought, and more than 250,000 people die. It's 2022, and we are on the brink of yet another famine. We're seeing armed groups exacerbating the vulnerabilities of already vulnerable community members. Water wells being poisoned. We're seeing entire farms being burnt down. So what we're talking about is not a preventative scenario. This is a life or death situation right now. I find hope in the fact that there is a solution. The empirical evidence to prove it is there. All we need now is both the political will, the resources, and the action. This is not just an altruistic, idealistic dream that one day we can overcome this. I find hope in knowing that there is an answer, and now we just need to get there.